All right, in 2020, 2021, I decided to leave Tesla, and that was an extremely difficult decision. And I really want to use this video to share why I did it and some of the big learnings that I've had since then. When I was deciding to leave Tesla, it was really because I was spending hours in an anechoic chamber, which I'll provide a picture for here. And I was spending a lot of time in a basement. I was soldering, I was troubleshooting, and I was doing all the things that engineers do. And I realized that the trajectory in which I was going didn't seem as compelling as I thought. And moreover, I just felt there was something else out there. I didn't know what it was and kind of still don't, but I've learned a lot that I think an electrical engineer who would otherwise just focus on electrical engineering as a purist, which is not a bad thing, just wouldn't have learned, or may not learn as quickly or as often. And so I left, and that was tough. I won't get into the challenges within that decision and much of kind of like the what do I do next. I feel like that's its own video. But I really wanted to share like this idea that I was hoping to explore, which was I was an engineer, and I felt that as an engineer, I was engineering, but I felt like there was something more. There was almost an entirely different world that I later learned was business. And it was interesting because as an engineer, I focused so much of my time and my mental energy on problem solving, which is amazing, right? Which is using physics, using technology, using first principles. I had to create something. And that was and still is super cool. What I didn't fully understand was where our constraints came from. So at Tesla, we would have constraints, whether they're like budgetary, timeline, design, like physical. There are always some constraints, and that's what an engineer really needs to be able to like design. Because if you don't give an engineer constraints, what ends up happening is they just like make things that aren't necessary. So constraints are actually a good thing. But I realized that these constraints, again, were coming from business people. And I never really liked that. And I think most engineers would say that I don't really like business people giving us the design requirements or the constraints, right? Either one. It's just like, who are you to tell? But I think there's actually merit in that, which is they have a different mindset. A business person has a mindset which is really around value creation and not problem solving. Which sounds kind of weird, but an engineer is excited to solve a problem and use technology and be technical. But within business, it's not about that. It's actually this idea of like creating value or delivering to a value proposition. And these are words or phrases that if you are in business are probably like super trivial, but if you're so deep in engineering, you haven't taken a step back to be able to like assess this. And that's why I'm sharing this, because I think a lot of the people on this channel are technical and they're probably wanting to have a different perspective. And I think this perspective also is super valuable because it gives you context in so many ways, right? It gives you the context to be able to better make the decisions for the business as an engineer or as someone technical. It also gives you like a confidence in when you're moving to know why you're doing what you're doing. And so like it gives you a little bit more conviction, a little bit more like pep in your step, if you will. One of the biggest qualms that I have is like I went to Purdue, and at Purdue, there's like an engineering part of the campus and then there's like a business part of the campus. They are divided by a lot of other buildings, but also a road. And I feel like that is the biggest or one of the biggest mistakes is that there's such a huge separation between business and engineering. And so what ends up happening is this really interesting dynamic, which is you got these engineering students sitting there in these random project-based groups or labs or whatever you want to call them, creating these widget type things that do nothing. In fact, there's even a name for it that's like, I think popular at Purdue, which is called a Rube Goldberg machine, which is a device or mechanism that serves no real purpose or value, but it is just like a bunch of widget-like things working in concert to achieve nothing, but like a trivial outcome. Maybe I'll provide some like proof point of what that is. And that's crazy, right? There's so much like capability, and it's like, we don't know how to use it, so we're just gonna like throw it away on a Rube Goldberg machine. fun little exercises, but like, should we really be spending all of our great technical resources building and creating things that actually mean nothing? Probably not. And then over here, you have business people who are so theoretical, or yet practical, in the sense of like they know that there's value to be created. They just can't do it. They can't deliver on the value proposition. They can sell like nobody's business. They can talk the talk, but they can't like hand over a deliverable. And that's okay. Like everyone has their own skill sets, but it's like, why are we not combining the two? And so if you are in business, you should actually be finding ways to collaborate with your engineering or technical pals. And if you are in engineering, you should be looking to understand or work with your business peers to be able to align to create something of value. Again, it's crazy that these two worlds don't talk. Or if they do, they have really bad communication. It's not like native. It's not inherent. It's not cohesive. And I feel like that's where a big opportunity is. And so what have I been up to and what have I been learning about? Quite simply, business. Business is an all-encompassing term. It can be everything from economics to decision-making, to sales, to go-to-market, to marketing. And of course, there's different applications like those. That's not even the application. Those are just the elements. But it's like, where do you apply this knowledge? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm exploring. And I'm having a lot of fun with that. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think if I was 22 again, I would really suggest someone, or 25, 29, doesn't really matter. I would suggest to someone that they should lean into the other world to understand that perspective, to empower their decision-making in their field. I have this really strong belief, and I don't know what it's fully founded in. Maybe it's just the way that the world is going with AI and just the world is going, period. But I think that being deeply vertical, so much so that you can't speak a language to any other function, actually doesn't serve you as well as you may think. And so if you're so technical in a domain at an esoteric company doing something that no one else knows about, that's pretty cool. But actually, I think, and what I'm starting to learn is this idea of arbitrage. It's like, if I can take one thing, which as an engineer is like your engineering capability, and learn something over in this engineering domain and apply it in this business world, or offer it in a space that doesn't have that as a resource, there's this arbitrage, because it's like, you may not be valuable amongst 5,000 engineers in the same echo chamber saying the same things. But if you go and find different rooms that doesn't exist, now you are learning about a different industry. You're learning about different problems, and then you can find ways to apply your skill sets in that domain. And it's actually perceived as a lot more valuable, because if you're over here, all of your peers are just saying like, you're just like us, so you're not special. But over here in the business, someone's like, man, you're special. And similarly, like if you're over in the business world, again, business and engineering being all encompassing terms of building and operating. If you're over here on the operation side, I think it's important to like understand the building side, whether it's learning how to code, being able to at least read code, at least understand what code means. It's really powerful. And so if I was to kind of like highlight this to a call to action, and I'm looking at my notes here because, fun fact, I recorded an audio snippet of this entire thing into ChatGPT this morning as I was getting ready for my day. And I was like, man, I got to record this video, but I don't want to lose any of the content, because like, you know, when your ideas are like very fresh and strong and high conviction, and you're just like, man, I hope I don't lose this. So I use ChatGPT to do that, which is a whole nother aside. And it was really helpful. So I am looking at my conclusion, and I'm trying to remember how I'm wrapping this up. Think about, how can you, as an expert in something, and your expertise doesn't have to be at a 1% or 99th percentile competence, right? You don't have to be like the top person or one of 100. You could probably be like above 50%, right? Above the median, above the average in a space. And that's probably pretty good. And then you have to then find the lower half of that, right? Where people aren't as knowledgeable, right? If you know how to build a website, find people who don't know how to build a website. If you know how to code, you pretty much just have to find people who don't know how to code. And then being able to like lean into those spaces, because that's where I think a lot of value can be derived. And on the operations side, find those people who are technical. Oftentimes they are looking for something that's compelling, because if you can build anything, you'd want to build something worth building. So you're actually pretty choosy in what you build. And so like make sure you're offering something that's compelling and worthwhile in building. So it's everything. There's a lot more to come, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.